or the cutting edge of that research is we're a subset of those 10,000, not all 10,000 or 12,000 we have. I have longitudinal research on. So in other words, multiple data points over time. So we can look at what's shifting over time, either flourishing more or less. But to know with specificity, what does that really look like practically? What are the kind of the positive spiral phases and practices people go through? And then the same the other way around. What does that look like if a leader is sort of in a downward spiral, a spiral of ill-being, one might say? And we do know so far that daily well-being is the first thing that gets low for pastors. So just that sense of basically feeling pretty good physically, emotionally, relationally, spiritually, vocationally. And that's the first thing that takes a dip because of the daily stress and strain. And if it takes a dip for too long, it starts to pull down all the other dimensions of well-being as well. So that's often where I'll start when I'm speaking to groups of clergy or coaching someone, is just let's talk about your rhythms, your exercise and sleep, your physical health, and let's start there because that's often the first area to kind of take a look at, and let's get that kind of on a good path, and then we can talk about some of the deeper issues perhaps. But generally speaking, what we find, I think, is the contemplative spiritual practices from the Christian faith are particularly important for ministry leaders to build into their lives with some regularity. Not that other spiritual practices are unimportant, but these seem to me especially important. And we think in part because they're sort of about just listening to God, receiving from God, just being with God as a disciple, as a child of God. I don't have to perform in any sense, which is what religious leaders are called upon to do all the time, is sort of religiously perform in some way. And to just step outside of that and just be a person loved by God and sort of bask in that in some way and remember who I am in that is really, really important and sometimes challenging to do in the midst of all the busyness and demands of ministry. So taking a step back from the flow. We're also finding that small steps make a difference over time. So doing small practices, but doing them frequently and consistently. And this is the good news. For example, just 5 minutes of silent prayer a day, sometime in the middle of the day. Doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be particularly profound, just sitting in God's presence and be quiet and still for 5 minutes. Not going to take away the bad day, but doing that every day, day in and day out, week in and week out, actually makes a significant difference over time to increase and enhance positive well-being, physical health, emotional health, spiritual well-being, all kinds of things. And so small practices done consistently and frequently really do make a difference. And then doing that in community in some way. I think that's the other big thing I would say we found is the isolation is what can be really difficult for leaders. And so having some place in your life to just be a person, to be cared about, to be able to process your own thoughts and feelings and to be known and loved is really, really important to long-term well-being.